Hey, welcome to the Future X podcast, another episode, Matt. Today, we're going to get into a topic that has been around for a long time. It's an area that we do a lot of research and development on. It's an area that you've spent more than 10 years studying and considered a thought leader in. But it's time to kind of give higher ed the beyond academics perspective on this one area. It's called the future of work. So before we dive into what the future of work is in higher ed and how it is applied in higher ed, give us a snapshot of what the future of work isn't, because there's a lot of conversation. There's a lot of groups out there starting to jump on the future of work bandwagon, and they're confusing it with other things. It's really not what it is. So clarify, what isn't the future of work?
Yeah, it's probably a good way to start it because I think everyone is trying to jump on it because it's a very interesting topic. Mm-hmm. Everyone wants to be a part of it. You know, when you think about future of work, it's, hey, I want to be a part of that. I'm working on the future of work. And I think what we've seen is people are really just doing HR transformation or workforce transformation.
And calling it future of work?
And calling it future of work.
Okay.
And what that really means is there's something happening at a campus and it requires your campus to adjust.
Give us an example. So like
the pandemic happens and all of a sudden you have to rethink your remote strategy.
Yeah.
That's not future of work.
That's workforce
transformation,
re-engineering, call it what you want.
Because it's something that dictated that.
Yeah.
Something happened to you and your campus has to react. It's workforce transformation. You have to transform to serve your institution during a pandemic. Now, they'll use Zoom as oh my God, we're using Zoom as a new technology, and that becomes future of work. But the reality of it is we've been using Zoom for a long time.
Yeah.
The pandemic is actually what created the shift in the way that you operate, the way you run. It made us work from home. It made us have to use a different medium. Cameras came on. And now we're starting to reorganize. And there's always some topics around the great resignation and all workforce transformation.
So, for example,
all HR transformation. And there is millions of dollars to be made there. And that's why everyone wants to use that future of work as a way to stem a conversation with schools on workforce transformation. But workforce transformation isn't driven by, future of work isn't driven by, something that occurred to you. ERP requires workforce transformation. When we think about future of work, you have to think about the innovations ahead of it.
Okay, so we'll come to that in a minute. But just to clarify so people are clear, what you're saying is, I remember a couple of years ago, we worked with a school in New York that was moving from one location to another.
Yeah.
From multiple campuses to a high-rise building, and they had to change everything about what they did. That's workforce transformation.
Yeah,
right?
Even though there was new technology,
sure,
the way that people got into the building,
right.
what
their working groups looked like, whether they
yeah.
or not they had offices, all that was workforce transformation. If we had called that future of work, we would have been manipulating what future of work really is,
yeah.
right? And we never did call it that, but that maybe others are doing it and calling it future of work, and that's really not what
did
it
they
is.
use advanced technologies for that? Sure. But that was driven by the technology, and then you have to adjust to it. Technology existed in a new building.
Okay.
So you have to adjust your workforce, you have to adjust HR, all that to that piece.
Okay, so now let's talk about what is future of work. Help us define it, or specifically in the context of higher education.
Yeah, so when we think about future of work, and I want to make sure people always think future of the work, future is like way ahead of it. Future is tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Like future is tomorrow. So don't be afraid of or keep it as like, that's something I need to think about later.
Yeah.
No, you should think about it because it happens tomorrow.
Yeah.
When we think about future of work, the first thing we need to understand is what innovations, what technologies, what creative next generation technologies are out there that starts to make you change the way you have your practices, your processes. It's driving you to a new operating model. So the first thing everyone needs to recognize is you have to understand what the innovations are out there or what will be there. First, you have to understand that. Then you have to understand what use cases does it change or influence or bring into market, you have to understand that. That's the second piece. And then the third is, how do you take those use cases and change the way you operate a campus?
So let's think back in time. Go back to, I don't know, 80s, 90s, 2000s. Some of the millennial higher ed staff probably have to think to like the 2010s to go, okay, what was a way life worked? And then some somewhat disruptive technology came in and changed that and impacted the future of work, right? What's an example? Would email be considered one of those?
Email, fax. And I can give you one example of changing your practices.
Okay.
Traditionally, in a paper-based campus, which I was.
Like a registrar's office?
A registrar's office. When someone came in to apply for a withdrawal, they used a 3-ply, and I had to get a signature. I had to sign the initial page on it. That student then had to take the 2nd ply to the financial aid office, take the 3rd ply to the housing office, the 4th ply to the bursar's office. All of a sudden, you have processes being initiated through that process, right? Now, that same withdrawal needed ink, signature. But when faxes came, you started to say, okay, how do we start to re-engineer that work? Now, the first thing you have to start to do is, when knowing that, you should know that, hey, there's faxes here. We have to start creating a policy around using faxes for withdrawals.
Yeah.
What we struggled with then is we were reacting to a fax being given to us.
Mm-hmm.
And then initially, everyone's like, we can't accept a fax. That doesn't have ink in it. But the reality of it is, if you're thinking about future work, you have to think about, hey, there's something called a fax. How do we start to rethink that? How does a fax come here? We authenticate it by maybe a phone call at that time, and then all of a sudden we're faxing those over to these different departments, because the real purpose of that 3-ply was to inform those departments that a withdrawal was happening, and they needed to get it out of their database.
Yep.
That was the way it worked. Now, when email came,
you could CC 3 people.
You CC 3 people, and now you're now changing the way you do work. But in a world of future of work, you are doing that ahead of time.
You're
anticipating it.
So, for example, one of the schools we're working with anticipated where the things are headed and decided to move their credentials to more of a blockchain-based environment, right? So they proactively went, set it up. It's live. Students are loving it. Digital wallets. But then a school receiving it looked at it and went, "What the heck is this?
Yeah,
we don't understand."
They immediately said, "We can't accept it."
They don't. We need it in paper. We need it this way. Our policy and procedures set up an old way. So there's just an example of one school that prepared itself for the future of work, saved a lot of human capital, and was able to redeploy those people into more meaningful work. And another school that receives a lot of their applicants and students kind of stuck in an old way of doing things, right? So that's going to happen more and more for schools that step into the future of work and transform, and ones that don't.
So there's 2 different perspectives. The institution that put in blockchain wanted to give students agency to own their own credential, to own their own wallet.
Yep.
They wanted to be able to say, hey, once you order 1 transcript, send it out to 20. Save yourself all this time, save yourself money.
And save us all the time and money.
Save the campus all that time. Yep. So that's one thing, right? Now, the flip side, the perspective of that institution receiving it and putting a halt on it, immediately was, we expect your students to do it our way. If not, it won't work for us. Their perspective is, we're more important than your student. And when we had the conversation with them, because they were pushing back on us, my question to them is, this is not an institution to institution purpose of why we're doing this. We're doing this so that our students can get into the market faster. They can get into employers faster. They could actually not need 120 hours to get a degree, that they could actually get credentialed much faster. Also, they can send that same transcript to 20 schools.
So the future of work, as we're understanding it, is each department, or potentially every role, but let's look at it at a department level, each department saying, what are the technologies ahead of us? Let's use, for example, AI.
Yeah.
Everyone's aware of AI now, but nobody yet knows how AI impacts or falls into a registrar's office or a bursar's office or an admissions office, right? So the question is, thinking that through and re-engineering strategy and process around it now to prepare for the future of work is what real future of work is.
So, and in future work, there is a methodology in deploying that, because you need to understand, why are you doing the work, right? And when you understand truly what you're going to go, what you're doing, what the real purpose is, you then have an understanding of where you have to get to. Then you look at the different technologies out there, and because they can communicate better, it could vet out things faster, it can do analysis much faster. We could distribute data in a different way with immutable, purposes. I think what I'm getting at is there is this different segments of how future of work has to be designed. It isn't just, let me show you how to organize your office. Let me show you how to work from home. Let me show, like I hear HR people talking about that. That's not future work. Unless you're going to go change how you operate and serve, you're not doing future of work. All you're doing is transforming your office around something that's happening to you. And that happens with ERP all the time. I got a new ERP and everyone thinks we're thinking about future work because they think the ERP is the future. Actually, the ERP is not the future. It's not using innovative technologies. Now, some may be starting to use AI and generative AI, but you have to start recognizing generative AI is going to, reports are going to look different. The way that reports are written are going to be different, because reports right now are written by humans with what they know. In a generative AI model, the computer, the machine, the technology, that's going to drive what type of elements you have to go populate into a dashboard that allows you to operate and drive a conversation for whatever purposes you want, whatever outcome you're trying to drive.
Anything else you want people to know about future of work as they hear about it more, they see it as topics at conferences, they try to figure out, okay, I lead a department, I lead an entire school. Where does future of work fit into my criteria or my priorities? I got so many other things on my plate. Where should future of work be, and how does it drive my decisions in the next couple of years?
Yeah, so future work should augment how you operate much more effectively. I always make the statement in our own consulting world: how do we compress the work? The effort that we do today, we should compress it because of the things that I can do using generative AI, using blockchain. How do we start to do work much more effectively? How do we operate more effectively? So if I were to say to someone that's at a conference, when you think about future work, you have to understand, how can it actually make us reimagine what we do so that our students, our faculty, our staff are being served in a different way, faster. Now, do we have to do workforce transformation because we put in that? Sure. It's a part of it. But when people walk in the door and they say, oh, let me give you the story of the pandemic, right away, you should know they're the people that you shouldn't be doing future work with, because they're not talking about future work. You ask them what the next generation innovations are in the market. They won't know. So if they don't know, that means they can't architect. They can't reimagine your practices. They can't reimagine your processes. They don't even know how to communicate better because they don't know what technology is coming up the road.
Let's talk about why. Like, one of the things, if I was listening in, I'd be like, but again, guys, why do I need to do this? Like, I get it. It's cool. It sounds sexy, compress the work, be more efficient, all that. But why is it so critical to do, and why now?
So in the old days, we could have said, you know what, keep 3-ply. It works. It works really well. But when we went to email, we were starting to say, how do we make this much more effective? How can I track it better? How can I do everything I want much more effectively? The more we compress, the more we streamline, the more we take away from humans to do that type of work, you then get them to do human work. You get them to use critical thinking, critical reasoning, empathy, Because what you want on a campus is to touch the hearts of the people you deal with. When your staff and your office is actually doing work, spreadsheets and data entry and all these things that technology should be doing, you're actually taking away your capacity to do really innovative work.
I'll give you, I think, a really practical example that comes to mind, Matt. We haven't even started this work, but very soon, I don't know, a couple weeks from now, we're going to be heading to California to be with a school, actually a department of a school, where the leader says,
advising side.
Yeah, he's like, look, and he said, the issue is our people are really good at what they do. They love what they do. They love serving students, but there's times of the year where we're so buried with other stuff, internal work and operational work, that we're not able to serve the student. And students during the peak times are often either on hold or not getting answers, and we feel bad. And we have to re-engineer our office. And he was thinking workforce kind of reimagination. Yep. This is actually true future of work, to sit with that department and say, okay, what is the work you do? And how does that work happen today? What if it can nimble generative technologies take over so that you can focus on the things you want to do, which is serve the student, right? That's future of work, re-engineering. We're going to re-engineer that entire office for the future of work.
You would deploy people in different ways because all of a sudden the work of the future is enhanced by the technologies that are out there.
Yep.
So of course, ChatGPT is a buzzword right now, but the concept of what ChatGPT is doing should be influencing many different offices.
Yeah.
Because ChatGPT is just OpenAI's version of it. Microsoft's going to have it. Google'll have it. It's all having it. You could do it as a WordPress, Word kind of editing document, editing tool, but it's more than that. It's rethinking how you serve. So in that case of that school in California, where we're going to think about advising, the group of advisors and how they advise better, our first is introduce them to the different technologies that are out there in market.
And that also compress the work. That let machines do what machines need to do. So humans can focus on what they want to do. I think that is a good summary of kind of what the future of work really is. And especially in higher ed, as a leader starts to think about where could this fit into my office, it's imagine if 10, 20, 30, 40% of your staff time was now available to do more meaningful work, because technology has taken that over in a way that didn't replace their jobs and fire everybody, but you just redeployed humans to do more meaningful work.
Yeah, we have to realize that this isn't a
cost cutting.
This isn't a assembly line that we're now all of a sudden removing people that used to put tires on and we're having machines put tires on. That's not what we're doing here. What we're doing here is taking that person that was putting the tire on and giving them the ability to work with a student on their career, have the conversation with them on the phone about things that only humans can do. Because right now, most campuses are very stiff. They're not very customer friendly. Why? Because people are doing machine work that we shouldn't be doing. So the real goal in this future of work strategy is let's leverage the next generation technologies. Let's rethink how they actually advise, use those technologies, build the use cases, then start to think about how do you organize that? That's HR transformation.
Yeah.
But
it's
you can't get that HR. Most of the time, if HR transformation people, workforce transformation people, they'll immediately start with, let's organize.
Yeah.
What are they going to reorganize? They're going to reorganize you doing your own work in a
little different way.
Little technology, and then boom. What we're saying is, no, let's reimagine what you do. Let's streamline it, make it very effective, and then drive that new practices into your campus. Because new practices are what we need. New operating models are what you need. Now, the outcomes are the same. We're still driving to really good customer service, really, high touch, all outcomes. And that's what we should be really focusing on when we think about future work, is changing the way we do it to do things better that humans never have been doing. And now humans can do it because machines are doing what they should do. And that's the mundane, the structured work, the repeated, the rules, all those sequential things. where technology right now can do it.
Can do it. All right. Well, thanks for listening in. Hopefully this has got your wheels spinning and thinking about whether you are in an office or running an entire institution, how the future of work should play into your strategy and even your next strategic plan. Make it a great day.